Welcome back, Defenders. Today we're going to start with my favorite story. Jet fire at Crimean oil terminal finally extinguished after burning for 5 days. This was after a Ukrainian drone struck it last week. This is what the oil depot fire looked like on day 4. And I guess by day 5, the Russians either put it out or the depot ran out of fuel. We have the satellite images. This is the before, and this is the after. This is a lower resolution image, but you can clearly see the damage to at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tanks. Maybe this is damage as well, and these buildings next to the storage units probably took some damage as well. This is what these buildings look like before, and this one looks damaged. These two look damaged. This was pretty bad for Russia. Russia needed this oil depot on the Crimean Peninsula. On top of that, nausea, headaches, and coughing. Locals complain amid Crimean oil refinery fire caused by a Ukrainian strike. If you're pregnant or thinking about becoming pregnant, you really shouldn't be living in the occupied territories, or next to an oil refinery, or a military base, or just living in Russia. If you're a Russian woman, you probably should get out of Russia while you still can. Logistical hell. Oil depot destruction reportedly sparks Russian fuel shortage. According to Ukrainian partisans, the Russians are setting up mobile gas stations that constantly change locations due to the fear of being targeted. So here's some pictures from Telegram showing the fuel trucks. And reportedly, the higher command has ordered that the fuel storage points remain in one location for no longer than 10 to 12 hours. This situation demonstrates that the destruction of large-scale facilities has had a critical impact, both on the supply of the troops and the execution of combat missions by the Russian forces in Kherson, Zaporizhia, and Crimea. Russia has problems. What else? Another massive oil depot fire. Russian-occupied Luhansk region was hit. In Ukraine's relentless campaign to bomb Russia's oil and military infrastructure, a fuel and lubricants depot was struck in the town of Ravenki. This is in Luhansk. There is a video, I'll link it down below if you want to see it for yourself. Russia also posted pictures of one of the drones that was shot down. This is a Ukrainian drone that didn't hit the target, but Ukraine often launches multiple drones to make sure at least one gets through. And yeah, that's a pretty cool design. I have no idea what the difference is between Ukraine's various jet drones or lower speed drones, but they're getting the job done. Satellite imagery backs Ukraine's claims of a successful strike on a Russian drone facility. This also occurred last week in the Krasnodar Krai region. The imagery shows burn marks on the ground and damage to warehouses. So last week, Ukraine claimed that they destroyed a warehouse with at least 400 Iranian drones inside. These are drones being launched from the Krasnodar region into Ukraine. And here's the satellite image before, and here's the after. I don't know why this satellite image looks like it was taken at night, but you can clearly see this building right here is a crater in the ground. Ukraine hit it with one of their own missiles. I think this was a Neptune missile. And something in this warehouse was obviously explosive, and there was a huge fireball and lots of damage to the surrounding areas. Let's check in with the front lines, and honestly, the last 2 weeks, not a lot has been happening. I can show you the timeline of Russian movement towards the city of Pokrovsk, and there's not really been much movement towards Pokrovsk. Yes, Ukraine was forced to strategically withdraw from the village of Vuhledar, but it's not led to any kind of breakthrough. The Russians were trying to take the village of Vuhledar for 2 years, and now they're just going on to the next village in this direction, and how long will it take the Russians to take this village? I don't know. Russia sends 50,000 troops to Kursk from other fronts in Ukraine. The redeployment of the Russian troops to the Kursk Oblast has weakened Russian forces in other areas, notably Zaporizhia, Kherson, and the Kramatorsk direction. So Russia's not willing to sacrifice manpower heading towards the city of Pokrovsk, but they have reallocated units and forces from Kherson and Zaporizhia mostly, and sent them to Kursk to fight. So the fighting in Kursk is getting more intense. Ukrainian defenses in Russia's Kursk region rocked by a Kremlin attack. On Thursday evening, mill bloggers claimed a Russian breakthrough, but 12 hours later, fierce fighting on the perimeter of this salient continues. This is what the military map looks like. Here is Glushkovo and Koronevo. Suja is located down here. And we can go back in time a couple days, and you can see this was solidly blue, and Russia is punching. Russia is, I think, desperate to take back this territory because it's affecting the polls. We've seen a massive drop the last 2 months in what available polling data there is. What do Russians actually think about this war? And the fact that 2.5 years into the war, Ukraine can successfully launch an operation into Russia and occupy sovereign Russian territory. Yes, this is moving the needle. This is changing the opinion of some Russians at least, so the Kremlin is desperate to take back this territory. Now the good news is the armed forces of Ukraine, they know exactly what's happening. They've sent experienced units to Kursk to combat this counteroffensive to the counteroffensive to the counteroffensive to the offensive. The armed forces of Ukraine have partially regained their previous lost positions in Kursk. Always takes 2 or 3 days for the map to update, and are actively fighting the Russian army. Active fighting continues in the Kursk region after the defense forces partially regained the positions where the Russians had entered. They started to send columns to the assault again. The war there is very dynamic, typical for the wooded area maneuvers that are taking place. So it is important not to fixate on any conclusions as being the final word. Either way, the United States predicts Ukraine can hold the Kursk territory for at least another couple months. The US believes that Kyiv can hold these territories in the Kursk region, although persistent Russian attacks in the Donbass raise a greater concern. So this was a propaganda victory. Ukraine has no intention of annexing this territory or keeping it forever. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen after the November election here in the United States. And there could be some kind of negotiation. I'm not saying a ceasefire, but perhaps Ukraine voluntarily gives this territory back to Russia in exchange for something. I don't know what that would be. This is President Zelensky's decision to decide, but yeah, this is a pretty strong negotiating bargain chip for the Ukrainians to play when they're ready. Has the Ukrainian F-16 got first blood? Pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian social media is abuzz, with as yet unverified reports that a Ukrainian F-16 shot down a Russian Su-34 fighter bomber on Saturday. So these Russian Su-34s are flying daily combat missions to drop glide bombs on Ukrainian positions. The Ukrainians more or less know about when they're going to fly their missions and what direction they're coming from. So yes, this is what we've been working towards the last year, for Ukrainian pilots to use F-16s to launch air-to-air missiles, these are AMRAAMs, to take down these jets. These Russian jets have to climb in elevation and expose themselves in order to fire off these glide bombs. And this isn't Ukraine saying this happened. This is the Russians. Urgently, our Su-34 was shot down. The crew was killed. The plane was shot down while dropping a FAB. Our Su-34 was apparently shot down by an F-16, which was over enemy-controlled territory. There will be more such losses soon. NATO has sent F-16s out to hunt. So Ukraine's not going to confirm or deny this. They're not going to talk about how and when they're using their F-16s. For the last 2 months or so, they've been using them for defensive purposes to shoot down drones and missiles. But yeah, this is what they've been working towards, getting these things in the skies to hunt and ambush Russia's jets using glide bombs on the front lines. I don't think this is the last time we're going to hear of this, and this might increase in frequency over the coming weeks. Ukraine destroys another Russian Mi-8 helicopter in the Kharkiv Oblast. This is according to a general staff report, but yeah, I'm guessing Ukraine got another one with the man-pads. This story's funny. Ukraine's cyber strike shuts down a Russian military university, erasing over 150 terabytes worth of critical data. Kyiv's cyber corps attacked Russia's North Caucasus University, destroying 150 terabytes worth of data, weakening the training of technical specialists for Moscow's military. According to the HUR source, the university supports several educational institutions across multiple regions of Russia, including 7 institutes. The attack damaged the internal information infrastructure of the target, just basically wiping and destroying as much information as they could, taking down websites, databases, and files in storage. Yeah, it's going to be a frustrating day for whoever the tech guy is for this university. Fire at Chechnya petrol station kills 4, including children. I don't want to see that, but Ukraine had nothing to do with this. Somebody is targeting gas stations inside of Chechnya. I'll link this video down below showing the fireball. I'll link this video down below showing a septic tank or a fuel tank that it just was launched by this explosion and goes straight at the camera guy. So this is pretty freaky. I'll link it down below. But there was another gas station in Dagestan that was destroyed on the 27th of September, killing 13 people. So people are asking, what's happening in the Caucasus? Kadyrov embarrasses Putin by declaring a blood feud against Russian legislators. Chechen leader Kadyrov is becoming increasingly emboldened in his personal political disputes. This is crazy. Kadyrov declared a blood feud on October 10th against Republic of Dagestan Senator Suleiman Kurmanov and State Duma deputies Bekin Barkyov and Rizvan Kurbanov, claiming that they seized Russia's largest online retailer, Wildberries, from the company's co-founder, Vladislav Bakalichuk, and were plotting to assassinate Kadyrov. Wildberries is the Russian equivalent of Amazon. You know, you order stuff online, there's warehouses, they deliver it to your home. And I guess there's this power struggle happening over the ownership of this company. And Kadyrov wanted his guy, someone loyal to him, in charge of this company, but Putin and the Kremlin picked some different people who don't really like Kadyrov, and Kadyrov views this as enough of a reason to launch a blood feud. So here is a Russian Duma member, Milanov, speaking about Kadyrov's blood feud of his fellow legislators in the Russian Duma. I am strongly opposed to any statement officially saying that he is declaring a blood feud in our country. It is impossible to officially declare a blood feud in our country, and not officially either. It is against the law. It is wrong. I am in favor of the law and the law enforcement agencies defending the interests of Ramzan Kadyrov, the head of the subject of the Federation, my fellow deputies, senators, and so on. We have only the state, which has repressive functions, which can force someone to do something. Everything else is illegal. It should not be like that. We are Russia. Russia is a state with a strong core. We do not have the right to change criminal law in some individual subjects of the Federation. Yeah, I think Russia has some serious internal problems here. So why is Kadyrov making noise now? Obviously, Putin doesn't want him saying and doing these things. is the Chechen tail wagging the Russian dog? Putin's fixation on keeping the Arab and Islamic world on side as his full-scale invasion of Ukraine approaches its 3rd anniversary means Putin now needs Kadyrov more than the other way around. So the way this has worked for the last 25 years is that the Kremlin pays the Kadyrov clan to be in charge and to keep the peace, to stop uprisings and revolts. But the Kremlin is weakening, Putin is weakening, and Kadyrov is using this to his advantage. Because the Kremlin has declared that their military allies are the Taliban, Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, all Islamic states, Kadyrov thinks he's more important now, given the Kremlin's ties to the Islamic world. So Kadyrov just wants more. More money, more power, more resources, more autonomy, and he's going to occasionally flare up and make these incidents that are embarrassing to Putin, hoping Putin just gives in to his demands, which, if I'm being honest, I think Putin's going to do. If Putin wants Kadyrov's guy in charge of this Wildberries company, yeah, Putin might just make the switch to keep the peace, because Kadyrov has the power to cause a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble for the Russians in the Caucasus. US actor, Russian propagandist Steven Seagal says he would die for Putin in a new documentary. Steven Seagal is American, born in America. I don't understand this guy. I don't know why he keeps making headlines. He's pretty old and washed up, and he lives in Russia for, honestly, probably the drugs and the sex parties, but yeah, I don't think he's actually going to volunteer. He just likes staying in the headlines. Well, let's check in with some actual Russian soldiers giving their lives on the front line for the Kremlin, for Putin. And every day, we get more of these videos. And what's happening now, as we head into this fall, is more and more Russian contract soldiers are getting past their 1-year point. What was happening in 2023, we had the mobilization in 2022, but in 2023, the Kremlin was applying pressure to companies, basically giving them quotas that employees at certain factories or whatever had to volunteer for a 1-year contract. And they were all promised, if you can survive 1 year, you can return to your home, you can return to your family, you can return to your job. But you have to do your time for the motherland. A year has gone by, and nobody is being released. Nobody is being dismissed. The Kremlin had no intention of ever letting these guys go prior to a complete victory, I guess. So let me read for you what these Russian soldiers are complaining about. However, our appeals were ignored. The command gave no answer. No answer, no decision was made regarding our discharge to reserve. And now the units of the 137th Regiment of the 106th Division of VDV in Ryazan were here without reason and continue contract service. Our passports and IDs are with the command. Also, during this year, we never went on leave, even though we provided requests regarding our leave. He then quotes Russian law, stuff about Russian law. The translator didn't want to translate that. Even more nonsense about presidential decrees. Even more nonsense about presidential decrees. Okay, we need to skip ahead. We are veteran servicemen. According to this, we're meant to be provided a leave lasting 15 days. According to point 5-1 of this law, yada, 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 yada. We're asking to look into it, our hopeless situation, to restore rights of the servicemen and follow constitutional rights of the Russian citizens. Yeah, all these men are going to die. Putin doesn't care about them. Nobody in their command cares about them. They're cannon fodder. Their job is just to absorb Ukrainian bullets. until Ukraine runs out of bullets. This is a bad story. African and Asian women misled into assembling drones for Russia's war in Ukraine. Promised work-study hospitality programs, these women instead face harsh working conditions and long hours in munitions factories, often under constant surveillance and exposed to harmful chemicals. Russia has been recruiting women from Africa, Asia, and Latin America under false pretenses, offering them training and well-paid jobs, only to end up assembling Shahed attack drones in Tatarstan. Ads promise young women from countries like Uganda, Kenya, and Sri Lanka a work-study program in fields such as the hospitality industries. However, upon arrival, they found themselves working long hours in factories making drones for use in Ukraine. This is slavery. Slavery of women in Russia. These women are trapped. Prior, Russia was using university students to assemble these drones, but this factory was attacked in Tatarstan. Some of these university students were killed in their dormitory, but they're valid military targets if they're assembling attack drones. So Russia's solution is just to trick impoverished women from third world countries to come to this factory, and I guarantee they're not being paid and they can't leave, and all their documents were taken from them. This is slavery, happening in the 21st century. Let's now give a quick update on the US election. This is happening here in the United States in just over 3 weeks. And nationally, Donald Trump can't win, as far as the popular vote. I don't think anyone's really disputing this. In 2016, Donald Trump lost by over 3 million votes. In 2020, he lost by over 7 million votes. And I'm pretty confident when you look at the national polls, Donald Trump is going to lose the popular vote by over 10 million votes. But there still is a chance he could become president because of the Electoral College. And when you look at the polls the last 2 weeks, something weird has been happening. I want to raise the alarm and share this video from a YouTube channel called Let's Talk Politics. I'll link this video down below if you want to see it for yourself, if you're closely following the US election. But since September 30th, something weird has been happening. Republican-aligned pollsters have been flooding the national dialogue, releasing all these polls showing Donald Trump winning in battleground states. The problem is, when you look at polls from nonpartisan organizations, they show it being much more competitive, or they show Kamala Harris winning battleground states. And because modern polling is so inaccurate, people don't answer their telephones, people don't respond to emails, whatever. Modern polling is very inconsistent and unreliable. So what pollsters do is they just average everyone. Anybody who does a poll for a state, websites that I follow like electoralvote.com, they average any publicly released poll. But the Democrats never release polls. Democratic campaigns pay for polling, they get data, and they don't release it to the public. They didn't do this in 2020, they didn't do this in 2016. But Republicans do release polls that they pay for. The Trump campaign has been paying for polls in states like Pennsylvania and Georgia and Michigan and Wisconsin that show Donald Trump winning somehow. And depending on the methodology of the pollster, you can get whatever result you want. So Republicans, since September 30th, have been putting out all these public polls that they paid for, showing Trump winning, which is skewing the averaging of all the polls when you factor in the nonpartisan organizations doing polling. So what I think is happening here is Donald Trump is doing this deliberately. These are not reliable or scientific polls. Some of these, they talk about it in the video, but some of these pollsters, when you look at their polling from the midterms and 4 years ago, they were way off anyways. But it's about shaping the dialogue. Donald Trump knows he's going to lose the popular votes. He probably thinks he's going to legitimately lose some of these states, But his intention is to create a scandal, to create a conspiracy that the deep state is trying to prevent him from winning the White House. He's going to challenge the results in every state in the courts and hope that he can appeal his way to the Supreme Court and just have the 6 Republicans on the Supreme Court make him president again. The election is happening November 5th. We're not going to know who won on November 6th. That's just how American elections work now. And Donald Trump and his minions are going to create legal challenges and problems and media scandals. And what they want is for the polling to look close or look like Trump is winning so that when he loses, they can claim it was stolen from him. This is what he did 4 years ago. If he's comfortable inciting a riot on the Capitol in which people died, yeah, I don't think he has an ethical problem lying about polling data. I'll link the video down below, but this is just something that I felt I had to raise the alarm with because it's going to be nasty in 3 weeks when Trump loses this election. No appetite for further Ukraine funding. House Speaker Johnson expresses fatigue over the war in Ukraine. Mike Johnson suggested that the resolution of the Ukraine-Russia war could hinge on the 2024 U.S. presidential election. Johnson suggested that former President Trump could swiftly end the Ukraine-Russia war if reelected, contrasting this with his view that under a Harris administration, the war would continue. Donald Trump's peace plan is lift all sanctions on Russia. Russia can keep all territory and people they've taken. Ukraine can never join NATO, and there's zero accountability for Russia ever. Peace in our time. And Speaker Johnson just does whatever Trump says. So if people in America want military aid to Ukraine to continue, if you want to fight for international law, if you want to fight for democracy, if you want to fight for human rights, you have to vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. Mike Johnson's basically making a threat that if MAGA controls the House, they'll never allow another vote on additional military support for Ukraine. So the solution is get rid of Speaker Johnson. Don't let Trump win. And if Democrats control the House of Representatives, it's a razor-thin majority the Republicans have at the moment. But then we can get a simple up or down vote on additional military aid for Ukraine. I don't think it really matters if Republicans control the Senate. There's enough Republican senators who aren't nuts who would allow a vote, and I think we could get to 60 votes to get closure, and another year's worth of military aid to Ukraine can continue. And then it's lights out for Russia in 2025. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. World Bank approves fund to facilitate the G7's $50 billion loan for Ukraine. Thank you so much to the World Bank. France announced they're going to be sending Mirage jets, but they didn't say how many, but now they're saying they're going to transfer 20 of these aircraft at some point in 2025. Thank you so much to the people of France. Norway allocates more than $87 million to increase weapons production for Ukraine. Thank you so much to the people of Norway. Germany has pledged 1.4 billion euros in military aid by the end of the year. This package is also supported by Belgium, Denmark, and Norway. Thank you so much to the fantastic people of all these countries. Final clip I have for you is a fox that befriended a state border guard service unit. And this fox just likes hanging out with these Ukrainian defenders. What does the fox say? Russia will be defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.